Hi Baker Bobcats, it's Mrs. Kardel. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and we miss you. Today I would like to read you a story. It's called When You Take a Pig to a Party. Let's make a prediction. What do you think might happen when you take a pig to a party? And let's read and find out if those predictions can come true. When you take a pig to a party. This little girl is Adelaide, and the pig beside her is Sherman. Adelaide and Sherman do lots of things together. They swing on the tire swing hanging from the black oak tree. They slide down the hay pile in the barn. And they like a good game of horseshoes after supper. Adelaide has always said that Sherman is the dearest, sweetest, most wonderful, and best behaved pig in the world. So, of course, she thought it would be okay to take him to Ethan's birthday party, especially since she gave Sherman a bath, sprinkled some of her mother's best perfume on him, and tied her father's polka dot bow tie around his neck. Things did go just dandy at first. Sherman loved musical chairs and even one pinned the tail on the donkey. But then Adelaide got so carried away watching Marlin the magician that she forgot to keep an eye on Sherman. So before she knew it, Sherman was in the flower garden munching away. And when Ethan's daddy saw Sherman, he bellowed, "There's a pig in our peonies!" See the pig? And Adelaide and Ethan and all the children took off after Sherman, yelling, "Stop! Sherman, stop!" But Sherman, thinking they wanted to play chase, started running in circles and bumped into Ethan's daddy, sending popcorn swirling like a January blizzard, which startled Sherman, who ran between Marlin the magician's legs, causing the rabbit just popping out of Marlin's hat to land kerplunk on Sherman's back. What astonished Sherman so much was that he scampered through a hole under the fence to where the McKinneys were having a barbecue. In fact, Sherman was running so fast he didn't even see that the McKinneys' swimming pool until he landed kersplat right in it. And the McKinneys and their guests roared, "There's a pig in the pool!" And Adelaide and Ethan and all of the children chased after Sherman, hollering, "Stop, Sherman, stop!" But Sherman didn't stop. Instead, he kersplashed across the pool, scrambled out, and squeezed through a loose plank into Mrs. Primrose's yard. And before Adelaide could get a word out, Sherman was heading through the open door into Mrs. Primrose's house, where she was hosting a bridge club luncheon. "Eek! There's a pig in my parlor!" shrieked Mrs. Primrose. Whereupon Cassandra, Mrs. Primrose's cat, so dismayed to see a pig in her house, took a flying leap and landed kerblunk on Sherman's back. And Adelaide and Ethan and all the children with wet clothes and muddy feet trampled through Mrs. Primrose's parlor, crying, "Stop, Sherman, stop!" But Sherman was already in the next yard where Mrs. Hayden was painting her flower boxes. And when Mr. Hayden stuck his head out the window to see what the commotion was all about, he tipped a pot of geraniums into a bucket of paint, sending paint kersplattering and everywhere and over everything. Mrs. Hayden squealed, "There's a pig in our paint!" And Adelaide said, and Ethan and all of the children with wet clothes and muddy feet and paint in their hair and on their best party clothes shouted, "Stop! Sherman, stop!" But Sherman simply would not stop. Instead, he darted across the street where Mr. Whipple was watering his lawn. And when Mr. Whipple turned in surprise, he sprayed water all over Mr. and Mrs. Rice, who were just coming home from the bakery. And that, of course, caused them to throw up their hands in despair. sending donuts kersplanking everywhere over the sidewalk. Adelaide and Ethan and all the children scurried over Mr. Whipple's lawn, screaming, "Stop! Sherman, stop!" And finally, at last, Sherman stopped. To eat the donuts, of course. But just as Adelaide was about to grab Sherman by his bow tie, Mr. and Mrs. Rice howled, "There's a pig in our pastry!" Which gave Sherman such a fright he took off again, heading straight for Lucy Marple, who was coming down the street on her brand new skateboard. "Help! There's a pig in my path!" Lucy hollered. Adelaide and Ethan and all the children called out at the top of their lungs, "Jump, Lucy! Jump off!" But when Lucy jumped off her skateboard, it did a backward flip and landed kerplunk under Sherman's feet. Which sent Sherman careening towards Ethan's yard, where Ethan's mother was putting the candles on the prettiest, yummiest, most delicious, most scrumptious looking birthday cake you ever saw. And Adelaide and Ethan and all the other children wailed, "Oh no, not the cake!" And they yelled and hollered and screamed and shrieked and cried and shouted and begged, "Stop, Sherman, please stop." And kersmack, kerbash, kerboom, he did. Uh-oh. Look what happened. Right into Ethan's cake. So, if you ask Adelaide, she'll tell you you never know what will happen when you take a pig to a party. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope that you staying healthy, safe, and doing some reading of your own. I hope to see you all soon, Baker Bobcats. Bye.